Hello everyone, and welcome back to another episode of Ushanka Show. Stories about life in the Soviet Union. Здравствуйте, дорогие товарищи. В эфире программа Ushanka Show. Some of you may recognize this photo. It was taken by my uncle Misha back in 1970s. So this is my grandparents Maria and Sergey. Grandma Maria is racing towards the gate to open it, and my grandpa is riding a horse wagon loaded with firewood. And here's another photo of members of my family and horses. And so this is a picture of my late father Nikolai, who is plowing the field in May of 1978, I believe. So he is preparing the field, helping my grandparents to plant potatoes. So in this video, I would like to discuss this bizarre situation that one of the world superpower, Soviet Union, relied on horses even in 1970s and in 1980s. And despite the fact that every kolkhoz and sovkhoz, so collective farm and Soviet farm, had combines like this combine kolos, tractors, and other equipment, they still had horses. By the way, if you don't know what is the difference between kolkhoz, коллективное хозяйство, and sovkhoz, советское хозяйство, so collective farm and Soviet farm, I already have a video on that topic, and link will be below in the comment section. When I was putting together information for this video, I discovered that in America, switch between horses to cars and trucks happened around 1915, but still in 1935, there were about 3,000 horse buggies still manufactured in the United States. I live in Southwest Michigan, not far away from South Bend, Indiana, the home of Studebaker Company. And the Studebaker Corporation stopped making horse-drawn vehicles in 1920, selling its horse-drawn business to the Kentucky Wagon Manufacturing Company of Louisville to focus on automobile production. Meanwhile, in Soviet Russia, in Soviet Union in 1980s, there were around 20 factories manufacturing horse wagons and parts for the horse wagons. This photo was taken in 1972 in northern Ukraine in the village of Kamka, literally about 10 kilometers away from my village. And this is how I remember horse wagons of my day. So it's a single horse wagon, wooden wheels, really basics. There's no shock absorbers or nothing, just everything made of wood, and there's some metal parts. And the Russian word for horse wagon is telega, or voz, telega, voz. And in Ukrainian language, we say viz. Some factories also manufactured horse wagons on the rubber wheels. This is the picture my mom took back in 2009 in her village. I don't recall any on the rubber wheels in the 70s or 80s in that village. Remember that earlier I mentioned that in the United States, back in 1935, they still manufactured around 3,000 buggies a year. And in Soviet Union, just one factory, although that was the largest telega factory in the Soviet Union, it was located in Borovichi, Soviet Russia. The name was Smena. They manufactured in 1980s around 20,000 horse wagons a year. Just one factory, 20,000 wagons in 1980s. So my guess, all the factories combined, the output was around 100,000 horse wagons in 1980s in the Soviet Union, comparing with 3,000 back in 1935 in the United States. So let's watch together this 1980 movie filmed in Borovichi, Novgorod region. So that's the factory, wooden wheels, horse buggy moving hay. Here, next generation rubber wheels, horse wagon as well. And this is the standard, I don't remember words, all that equipment that you have to put on the horse. So they show different types of horse wagons, and this is actual factory. So two types, wooden wheels or rubber wheels, and the difference is 200 rubles for the wooden wheels horse wagon or 450 rubles for the rubber wheels. And this is pretty much industrial process in 1980s. As you see, there's going to be a lot of manual labor, although there is some modern equipment. They're using a lot of wood, making a spoke. Ladies working, probably no gloves, sure. Wheel making right here. And once again, this is 1980. Like, this is pretty wild. And then, of course, when they put the wheel together, then they have to have a metal band nailed around the radius, and that's, they mentioned something about 165 people who know how to build wheels working at this factory. So as you see, a lot of manual labor, a lot of this is people just doing ironsmithing, I think it's the word, right? So once again, this is the country that sent first man in space, first satellite space, and this is people in 1980s working on horse wagon production. That looks pretty wild. And this is view upside down, those rubber wheel horse wagons. So those actually look pretty cool. I never seen any of those in my village. Okay, now it's 1985 movie filmed in Sambor, western Ukraine, another horse wagon factory. This factory was a part of the furniture making company. So once again, they're making wooden wheels, manual labor, no gloves. And this factory manufactured around 10,000 horse wagons every year. So that Russian factory in Russia was making 20,000. These guys in Western Ukraine were making 10,000 wagons and about 5,000 axles with wheels. So that's like repair kits. And it looks different. So that's definitely like Western Ukraine style. They're narrower and has a longer side. So look, modern equipment. They use a tractor Belarus to pull a bunch of horse wagons and parts out of the doors of the factory in Sambor, Western Ukraine. And actually, during this movie, the lady was mentioning that horse is not a competition to tractors, it's a helper, because quite often it's more economically valuable to use a horse with the wagon versus tractor and a wagon. This vintage, not that vintage movie blew my mind because it was filmed in 1991. So this is Goryacheva village located in Ivanovsky region, Russia, Soviet Russia at that time. Once again, a lot of manual labor. So they make wooden wheel horse wagons as well as the sleigh to ride in the winter. So this is pretty wild. Steam to bow the wood. A lot of these parts, I don't know how to call them. I know it's Hamut in Russian. And that's how they make horse wagons and sleighs in 1991. Just crazy. Very efficient. And then you wonder why Soviet Union collapsed. This is what the way the people work and make goods in 1991. I also must mention that Soviet villagers, collective farm workers, were not allowed to own horses because horses are means of production. So probably that's another reason why collective farms kept horses, so they can let their workers to borrow them and use them for bringing firewood home, bringing hay, because everyone had a cow, goats, so you need to get hay somewhere. Then the only way to transport hay, since no one had pickup trucks did not exist in the Soviet Union. The only way you could do it was use the horse with the wagon, and then you move hay around and other goods. That was just what my grandparents did even when they retired. I took this photo while visiting my mom in her village in northern Ukraine. So as you see, you don't need a horse anymore. All you need is a so-called motoblok. So that's the little tiller that could be used also to transport firewood. And even in socialist realism art, you could see quite often this combination of tractors and horses. So here we have these two young collective farm workers falling in love, and he's a tractor driver and she's probably a milkmaid. And as you see, the horse wagon also has wooden wheels. This is a really cool socialist realism art called Novaya Учительница, new teacher. So the price of your education was 3 years распределение. So they will send you anywhere in the Soviet Union to work, in this case as a teacher. So even if you're a city girl, your parents live in the city, after you finish your college and you became a teacher, you'll be sent somewhere middle of nowhere. Like in this case, she got picked up off the train station by the horse buggy. It's not even a buggy, right? It's the wagon with some hay on it. And she's gonna spend next 3 years. Maybe she'll fall in love with a local tractor driver and stays there. But usually girls, after being done with 3 years, they will race right back to the city. And I don't know about you, but I find this dependence on horses in the Soviet Union quite bizarre. Of course, when I was a kid back then, it was just the way it is. You come from the city where everything is modern or somewhat modern, and then I go to village to my grandparents, and it was literally like going back in time 50 years or maybe even 100 years. No running water, outhouse, getting water out of the well, moving around, just walking, riding bicycle, or your grandparents will borrow a horse to do their big chores like bringing firewood or help a neighbor to pull Zaporozhets out of the ditch. So the Soviet Union was like that bodybuilder that skipped the leg day every day. So he had two huge arms, left giant biceps military industry, right giant biceps space industry, and the rest of the body, especially the legs, like agriculture, is just so outdated, so primitive. No wonder Soviet Union had to purchase millions of dollars worth of grain every year just to feed its own people. So it's a really interesting topic to discuss and explore why the Soviet Union relied so much on the horses even into the 70s and 80s. I mean, there's the pictures you could see even in large cities. There'll be people riding the horse wagons. They came from the village to shopping, so pretty wild. So please write in the comment section what you think about this situation. As always, if you like the video, don't forget to like it, and we'll talk to you soon. До свидания, goodbye.